You guys are my inspiration. So if you have some ideas about ways to get through these times, leave a message. Let me know. I am getting through these times by making videos, by cooking nice meals for me and George, by staying in touch with my kids and my parents and my siblings, and by running errands on Thursday. I'm still keeping my focus on the Julia Cameron book, It's Never Too Late to Begin Again, which is written mostly for people looking to rediscover the creative person inside that they may have been ignoring or perhaps have never even discovered. This chapter, called Reigniting a Sense of Resilience, covers several different areas. It covers the scientific method, interestingly enough. This is juxtaposed with talking about spirituality. It also talks about exercise and getting out into nature. I'm going to focus on the spirituality section because that's kind of where my head is these days, as well as my heart. I'm someone who's been very involved in the church. I'm a Presbyterian. I've been a worshiper, I've been a volunteer, but I've also used my creative talents in the church. I used to direct plays and sing in the choir and sing solos, and we had a folk group, of course. Every church has to go through their folk music phase, right? That's not for me where my spirituality lies now. For me, it's a little more difficult to describe, but I do feel a strong sense of connection to a greater, higher power. I'm just having a little trouble defining it now. Because this is a study of one, I can only tell you about my own experience. And I haven't necessarily gained clarity about who or what God is. What I have gained is a sense of appreciation for the mystery of spiritual life. And I think that Julia Cameron really does appreciate this. In here, she points out that her sense of God came about as a result of a poem by Dylan Thomas. And I'll read to you a line from the poem. She says, "A Dylan Thomas poem summed it up for me. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower." She said, "This I could believe in. There was a greater life force, and yes, I wanted to have a relationship with it." Ever since we moved to this section of the country, we live in a really beautiful natural area. We've seen deer and groundhogs and eagles and osprey. We've seen seagulls and birds carrying big fish to their nests. We've seen some amazing things living here. And up close as well, the tiny purple flowers that grow in the yard in spring, the vegetable garden that we plant ourselves, and every year we seem to be able to eat fresh out of our own garden. What Julia Cameron says about her own spiritual practice is that my creativity flourished when I set my ego aside and allowed myself to write as if I were taking something down rather than thinking something up. This is a tough time, I think, to talk about God and spirituality because there is a lot going on that is so challenging. There are people dying and becoming terribly sick. There are people losing their jobs. And when you open up the news on any given day, you can find any number of stories that lead you to believe that everything is falling apart. And it's hard to find God in those stories. But I think that's where this idea of your perspective comes into play. I've said before that perspective is everything. And I think for an artist, you can't ignore the tough, challenging things, but you have to stay focused on the things that lift you up. In this chapter of the book, Julia Cameron has a Nietzsche quote that I found really perfect for this idea. "And those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Friedrich Nietzsche. We're always going to be living through times when we can find difficulty if we look for it, when we can find suffering if we tune into it. I certainly wouldn't want to suggest that we ignore suffering, but I think we can find some sense of joy even during times of suffering. And for a lot of us, the joy comes in those creative moments, in expressing yourself creatively, writing a poem or a song, singing, painting a picture, drawing, cooking, gardening. There's a long, long list of things that we could do that bring our creative self alive. And I think now more than ever, we really do have to pay attention to that part of ourselves. It's now when we definitely need to be focused on those things that uplift us. One of the things she says in the chapter is, try believing God is on your side. There's the God of the parking place. Like, if I believe hard enough that God will give me a good parking place, I'll get one. That's more of a game that you can play. I don't know that when she says try believing that God is on your side, she's trying to say anything like, if you believe that God will give you $1 million, it'll show up. I think what she's saying is, try looking for the good. There are moments of beauty even in the most difficult times. And whether or not you're focused on the difficulty, you can find moments of beauty. This is a somewhat large section, but I think it's a pretty good way to look at prayer. Many of us would shy away from prayer, but writing our pages, and when she says writing our pages, she's talking about the morning pages where you write 3 pages every morning when you wake up, and it helps you clarify what it is that you want for your day, and it helps you dump all the stuff onto the page that you've been carrying around with you for 24 hours. We may discover ourselves doing something that resembles praying. We contact an unsuspected inner resource. It doesn't matter what name we give to this force. What does matter is that we listen to it. And this listening, done daily, brings startling results. Please guide me, we pray. And soon we receive guidance. It may come as a hunch or intuition. It may come as a conversation with a stranger. The point is that guidance does come, and if we are open to listening, we hear it. I'm not going to go through any more of the chapter this time. I'm just going to leave you with this idea on this Happy Mother's Day. Listen to your intuition. That still small voice can sound different to different people, but only you can determine in your own study of one what that intuition is telling you. If you can tune out from all of the information coming at you from everywhere, from every screen in your house, from every person you talk to on the phone or in a video chat, you're going to hear opinions. You've got to take the time to sit in quiet and journal or meditate or pray or walk alone and listen to that voice of intuition that is speaking from your higher self or your higher power or your God. It is giving you guidance all the time, and you will hear it if you listen. Thanks, guys. Happy Mother's Day. Especially Happy Mother's Day to my mom and to my sister and my sister-in-law. I am so grateful for all of you all who have provided mothering in my life for me and for my kids. So, just so you know, you are loved, you are cherished, and we will get through this together. How are you getting through this? Also, If you know of a healthcare worker that's exhausted and overworked, send them a message. You don't have to call them up because they may not have time for a lot of lengthy phone calls. But if you know somebody, just text them a message that you're thinking about them, that you've got them in your heart.